I have recently become aware of a lot of the vitriol in the Black social media space aimed at Black Christians. They accuse us of believing the white man's religion, still being enslaved mentally, not being able to think critically or independently, mistaking mythology for reality, being illogical, being too passive, too forgiving, and doing too much praying. The number one criticism, of course, is not being willing to fight for Black liberation. Most of the people spewing the venom are not, by their own admission, Christians themselves. Some claim to have grown up in Christian households, while others claim to have studied Christianity extensively, whatever that means. Others were devout churchgoers at one time but have since left the faith. These people claim to love Black people, but many, if not most, of the biggest influencers use divisive, disdainful, demeaning, disparaging, and disturbing language in their condemnation of Black Christian practices, values, and beliefs. And yet they want Black people, the overwhelming majority of whom are Christian, to support and follow them. I fail to see how they are being loving and liken their often belligerent behaviors to domestic abuse. It's like a husband who constantly tells his wife she is ugly, fat, and disgusting, but he wants her to have sex with him willingly and frequently. Or he tells his wife she can't cook and her food is revolting, but he wants her to prepare all his meals. Or like those parents who tell their kids they are stupid good-for-nothings who will never amount to anything, yet want the kids to respect and trust them. You can't have it both ways. What makes these Black detractors from Christianity so harmful is most have never even read the Bible from cover to cover in the first place. In fact, based on some of the nonsensical things they say, like the Bible has no relevance today, or the Bible was written by men, or my personal favorite, the Bible can't be proven, it is clear they haven't even read a significant portion of it. So they are critiquing something they have not even spent the time to review. Which opinion would you trust most? That of someone who told you not to go see a movie because they heard it was bad, or of someone who actually saw it and can confirm it wasn't well made? Which opinion would you trust the most? That of someone who told you not to eat at a restaurant because they heard it was nasty, or that of someone who actually ate there and can confirm that the food was not tasty? There are plenty of people who make a living reviewing everything from food to music to technology to vacation spots to books and everything in between. Their opinions, whether positive or negative, are only valuable because they have actual experience with the person, place, or thing they are critiquing. Platforms such as Yelp and Amazon make a point of verifying the purchases of people who want to leave reviews, again, positive or negative. They don't want someone who hasn't even bought the product to comment. But Black Christians are supposed to be subjected to mockery and contempt by pop-up psychologists who have barely even glanced at our holy scriptures? But that's not the worst part. When you scratch their surface, you find they have done very little, if anything, beyond talking to relieve the suffering of our people. But that's still not the worst part. Because they don't cultivate the things of the Spirit, and by that I mean the Holy Spirit, they have no idea they are being used by Satan to drive a wedge between Black people and God. They are being deceived by their focus on white supremacy into everlasting damnation and turmoil, and they want to take the rest of us with them. So let's get into this. Get your thinking caps on and grab a seat, because class is about to begin. Now, I would have preferred to have done this video on camera, especially since I'm calling people out by name. But unfortunately, I could not figure out, after several hours, either the app or whatever application or program I need to be able to record my webcam and my desktop at the same time. If not, I am not doing a live stream. Those of you who are far more tech savvy than me, and that's not hard to do, if you have any ideas that I should be checking out, please mention them in the comments section. I would like to be able to record both my webcam and my desktop at the same time. Now, I also want to point out that I have focused on these three people, but they are not at all the only people out there who are spreading this anti-Black Christian vitriol. They just happen to be the three that I have listened to the most frequently. All right, so with those disclaimers, I want to say that a few weeks ago I participated in a call-in show by the Great Liberators, which is hosted by Amiri Brown and Kenya White. The particular episode I am referencing was called "Has the Black Church Failed the Black Community?" Now, I will be doing a separate video about this topic, and it will be coming up next. But tonight's episode of the Blackboard is focused on how non-Christians within the Black community feel they have a right to disparage, demean, and belittle Black Christians when they know little to nothing about the Bible, do not cultivate the things of the Spirit, don't know church history, Black church history that is, or contributions, and most importantly, they offer no viable alternatives. They are keyboard or YouTube warriors at best. But if you ask them how many people they've fed, how many homeless people they've provided shelter for, how many people they've gotten jobs for or helped to start a business, how many people they've sent to school, what are their plans for securing our neighborhoods, how many people they've loaned money to besides friends or family to help with bills or buying a house, all things the Black church has done, in most cases the answer is zip, zero, zilch, nada. And if they've done anything at all, it was probably tied to a job they were paid for. But actually being out there in the streets, in the belly of the beast, trying to ease the suffering of our people, nope. Now, you might ask, what have you done? Well, I worked for 4 years in the technical field and prepared nearly 2,000 people from low income, low skilled, and no job backgrounds for jobs in that field. I personally helped hundreds get placed into jobs, and under my direction, hundreds more were placed in other jobs by my team. I have personally attended local government meetings both as a civilian and as a government employee, placing my job on the line when I stood up and asked, sometimes against hundreds of other people, what is your plan for Black people? Or why are these resources being spent on every other group than Black people? I have even personally and face-to-face asked these same questions of the wayward and lost leadership in the city of Oakland, starting with the mayor, Libby Schaaf, and also the Congresswoman, Barbara Lee, who, by the way, does not speak for me. I have either been shut down by other Blacks or have been met with the deer in the headlights look. As in, well, what would you like us to do? I mean, how would we do that? Are you talking about reparations? When I respond, do for Black people the same thing you have done for all these damn immigrants, even the illegals and the Muslims, then I'm met with silence. Or they will try to deflect my questions by saying, well, we're trying to help all people of color. At that point, I respond that I am not people of color, but I am Black. And it is upon Black people's continued sacrifice that this country was both built and is maintained. It's high time the country repay us, not a bunch of foreigners who have not done anything to merit anything that they have received. So, those are my credentials. Now back to the topic at hand. On this particular broadcast, Has the Black Church Failed the Black Community? Host Amiri Brown's arguments against Christianity pretty much ran along the lines of perhaps it provides some moral instruction, but he didn't place any stock in it because of the way it has been used. Now, all of us over the age of 10 can point to some philosophies or dogmas that have not been used like the person who implemented it intended. But here's a news flash. Christianity was instituted by God himself. Every person on the planet is expected to follow the example of Christ, whether you call yourself a Christian or not, or whether you believe the Bible or not. So there you go. Now, further to express what Mary said, he states that he relies more on logic and that one's religious beliefs and intellect should be symbiotic. I wholeheartedly agree. It takes a lot more effort and bending of intellect not to believe the Bible than to believe it. Everywhere throughout nature, the heavens and the animals and the human body, there are fingerprints that point to a divine creator who is very specific and deliberate in all his works. Because one chooses to reject or dismiss the information does not make it false or non-existent. He further lamented that black people are the only group who, in his words, take literally what is meant to be a metaphor. By what authority he has come to this conclusion, I don't know. But any true student of the Bible knows that although metaphors are used to teach some biblical truths, commands such as do unto others as you would have done unto you, and as you forgive, so shall I forgive you, are not metaphors at all, but actual instructions on the character and conduct expected of those judged approved to reside with God the Father and Jesus the Son for eternity. The fact that blacks, in particular the DOS, are widely considered the most loving and forgiving people on the planet is proof of God's heart towards us, not an indictment that we are a weak and easily manipulated people. While it is true that much better instruction needs to occur among our tribe immediately, the fact is other people groups should strive to be like us, not we like them. But you only know this if your eye is on eternity and not on this earth. Call-in guest Cynthia G., in her typical combative and disrespectful style, entered into multiple minutes-long verbal assaults on another call-in guest named Christina, accusing her of lying when Christina insisted that the Bible has a remedy for everything. Because the Bible does not mention white supremacy or even race specifically, Cynthia seized on this like a dog with a bone and pronounced that everything means everything. And if one cannot point to specific instructions regarding white supremacy, then the Bible does not offer a remedy for everything. When Christina responded that the problem was that we don't love one another, Cynthia scoffed and asked, "Name one time when love solved any problem." She went on to erroneously insist that black people knew nothing of the Bible until we were colonized by Europeans, and stated that the black church has never benefited black people. She was particularly triggered by the suggestion that she should read the Bible as a defense against her accusations. Huh? As I questioned before, whose opinion would you trust more? One who has actual experience with the person, place, or thing they are critiquing, or someone with little to no experience? Now let me pause here and say that in general I support these people and strongly believe them to have a great passion for our people as well as the boldness to become much needed leaders for our tribe. I follow their channels. I'm a Patreon supporter of Amiri and Cynthia and have donated to Yvette Carnell. I want to mention here that I included Yvette Carnell in this group because in the past she has also expressed similar strident perspectives. But in all fairness to her, recently she appears to have matured in her delivery of her position regarding the black church and Christianity. I also can completely understand their frustration with the seeming lack of forward movement within the DOS, as well as what they describe as the passivity of the black church. That said, here's where I take great issue with all of these people. First, the church, any Christian church, is responsible to God, not man. God instituted the church, not man. The church will be judged by God, not man. So the church's mission has been directed by God, not man. Those instructions were given to Jesus Christ and are recorded in the New Testament. It's not up to a Mary Brown, Cynthia G., Yvette Carnell, or anybody else to determine what business the church conducts or how it does it. Second, because these people's view of Jesus Christ and Christianity is clouded by the lens of white supremacy and their failure to read the scriptures for themselves, they erroneously believe Jesus to be a hippie flower child raining kisses and good times on everyone. However, Jesus himself said he came not to bring peace but a sword. He came not to unite, but to divide. He further promised that upon his return, he would not come as the lamb, but as the lion. The message should be clear to non-believers that Jesus is not a punk. Furthermore, the most revolutionary act one can take in this life is to decide to follow him. The fact that contemporary blacks have not used scripture to better our condition is because we are relying on others to read it instead of doing it ourselves and applying it properly and righteously. Third, if one is not a Christian, I fail to see how the business of Christians is relevant to your life. If it does not take time out of your time out of your schedule, money out of your pocket, food off your plate, why are you speaking on it at all? If you don't want to be a Christian, don't be one. No problem. But why do you feel you have the authority or even competency to speak on something you know nothing about? Does one speak on issues related to the medical profession if one has not studied medicine? Even if one's mother or father is a doctor? And if one has studied medicine, would you speak on a discipline you have not acquired mastery of? No. Does one speak on the mechanics of auto repair if one has not repaired enough of them to understand all the processes through which autos are repaired, even if your mother or father is an auto mechanic? No, and for the same reasons. Does one speak about rocket science if one has not, in fact, trained in astrophysics or some other similar related discipline? No, 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 no. And anyone who has trained would quickly know that you don't know what you're talking about and would wonder why you are talking at all. So it is with Christianity. Lots of people with flapping jaws but no knowledge. Lots of people with opinions but no understanding. These same people scoffing and mocking black Christians wouldn't dare do the same with the Nation of Islam or actual true Muslims. They understand the consequences would be swift and quite possibly deadly. But in the name of uniting blacks, they are taking an axe to one of the few but most effective pillars of the black community. Which leads me to my biggest problem with these people, aside from their appalling lack of scholarship on this topic. Let's pretend for a moment that the Bible could not be proven and Christianity was a sham. Now, I'm not talking about the erroneous and unbiblical practices that permeate most church organizations. I'm speaking of the actual beliefs and tenets as they were taught in the Bible. Let's pretend these folks are right and the Bible and Christianity is fake, and the Bible isn't fake. What then? What are they proposing to replace it? From my research, many of these folks have been out in the social media for years, even as much as a decade, and have not organized one single meeting bringing our people together to meet with our local elected officials. They have not organized one single text, email, or pledge campaign to help our people take legislative action on one single bill. I have yet to see any of them even sponsor a petition. Now, there's a petition circulating right now to add a specific category for the DOS on the next census, which occurs in 2020. I haven't seen any of these people even talking about it. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't pretend to follow all social media platforms, but you would think at least one show would be dedicated to upcoming political action alerts, especially in midterm elections. From what I can see, all they're talking about is white supremacy, swirling, hair weaves, black people being poor, and black male issues. These people haven't even done what the Black Panthers did: provide free groceries, free breakfasts, got people employed and earning money, provided security for black neighborhoods, made political alliances to make a case for all poor people, and improvements for blacks. Sickle cell anemia came to the forefront and received federal funding because the Panthers didn't just talk about it, didn't just criticize institutions. They got off their asses and did something about it. So again, what you got? What have you done for us lately besides talk? In fact, some of the Black Panther leadership, such as Eldridge Cleaver and I believe Bobby Seals, stated that it was a mistake not to reach out to black churches. They realized that black churches are one of the pillars of the black collective and is the best organized institution of all our pillars. Furthermore, there were many Christians who agreed with the Panther premise and gave not only money but time, resources, and talents. I will be covering in separate videos some of the ways the black church has benefited the black community, as well as why we need to maintain the black church and, in my view, use it righteously to separate ourselves from everyone else. But the point I'm making now is, what are these other people doing that is even remotely at the level of what the black church has already done? You accuse black Christians of praying too much and forgiving too much. Well, I accuse you of waiting too much. Black Christians didn't wait on you to do what they felt is right. What are you waiting on? Why is it, with all of the technology and information at your fingertips, you are not starting your own movement? You are not setting up your own black communities outside of the church. After all, there are plenty of black folks, about 20%, who are no longer Christians or never were. Why do you spend your time and energy trying to reconfigure the black church institutions to suit your purposes? If you are indeed activists, then you should be active, right? I've reached out to both Amiri Brown and Cynthia G to co-host a show on how to prepare our collective for disasters. For example, it has been forecast for more than a decade that widespread famine will come to the United States by 2020 or 2021 at the latest. We all know that when food becomes scarce, black folks will be the first to be picked off. I have had no response from either platform. Now, I have prepared my household because my Bible told me that when I saw things like earthquakes in diverse places, an increase in phenomenon in the heavenlies, mass animal deaths, bodies of water turning red, I was to understand that Jesus was even at the door, and I was to get ready and to urge everyone I could to do the same. That's the reason I do these videos. My Bible even gives me the promise that if I live uprightly before the Lord, I may be found approved for these things to pass over me. But even without God being in the picture, none of these people have spoken out about the impending famine. They're too busy talking about white supremacy. Their focus is way too narrow. So I am left with the impression that most of these people are not black activists, but black agitators. Not black warriors, but black whiners. Not black liberators, but Satan's stooges, being used to rip black people out of God's hands, which is the only hope we have, and into eternal damnation. And I stand against you in the name of Jesus, because you don't understand the consequences of what you're saying, nor the punishments you are sowing upon your own heads. I want to issue a very stern warning to any churches that would invite an audience with these types of folks. Remember, your appointment comes from God, not man. The mission of the church, any Christian church, is to seek the lost and to lead them to Christ through a careful and prayerful study of His Word. Be very, very careful of allowing any black agitators to come in and waylay your mission. It is one thing if they have something they have organized going on and want to ask if you want to lend support. It's quite another to invite those who have no understanding of the spiritual to offer direction of the spiritual. And to Cynthia G., Amiri Brown, and Yvette Carnell in particular, I support you and believe you have very good intentions, but time is very, very short. I strongly suggest you revisit the Bible while you can and do so in a humble and open manner. As I said on the show and the call-in show, God will take you where you are because He doesn't want you or anyone else to perish, but you must make a move towards Him. If you don't, by default, you are serving Satan. I repeat, time is very, very short, my people. This year, 2018, is extremely special on the Jewish calendar as well as the prophetic timeline. For one thing, it is a Jubilee year. In ancient times, it meant all slaves were returned to their families, debts were forgiven, and land returned to its original owners. Read Leviticus 25 for specific information. Also, during this year, there have been never before or extremely rare movements in the heavenly bodies. Though some will dismiss these occurrences as being merely cyclical or natural phenomenon, the truth is that they have never before happened at the same time. I have included a couple of video links in the description box which explain these phenomena more succinctly than I can. All of these activities confirm what the Bible has foretold for years. All of these events are examples of God's power and of His promise that He doesn't want anyone to perish, but wants them to draw near to Himself so they can escape eternal damnation and torment. The question is, do you value yourself and your soul enough to pay attention, to repent and change your behavior to be in line with Christ's, to call on His name and be saved by the blood of the Lamb? Or are you one of Satan's stooges too? Let me know what you think in the comments section. The link to the Great Liberators call-in show I am referencing is located in the description box as well, and I have also included links to the articles I referenced in this video. As always, like, share, and this video. Our tribe needs this information. If you like the content, subscribe to this channel and encourage others to do so as well. Until next time, this is Mickey Lee, your Negro with aptitude and host of the Blackboard.